We
All
good?
right. Yes,
All
go for
right.
it. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. I watched yesterday's broadcast, but I couldn't see it from this perspective, so I got a little feel for it. But it's really great to see you, and Shana, thank you very much for having me as well on this panel, and everybody. I think it's a really great panel. I look forward to hearing everybody's opinions and feedback, and I think we all come from different worlds, so it will be interesting to hear everybody's take on it and move forward. And there's my husband. Hi. Are you sneaking in? All right. What I watched yesterday, it looked like everybody kind of gave a little short bio on where they came from and how they got to where they are, and then I'll talk about the connection part of it as well. So my background is that I been in the event business and design business for probably most of my life, in and out of food service, events, and then going into corporate events where I was doing event planning, touring nationally and internationally, actually talking to consumers for Waterford Wedgwood, which got me much more interested in the higher end luxury demographic. And then I transitioned into working solely with private clients from there. So working with them doing home and event styling. So I do some interior design work, but not moving walls, mainly color selection, seasonal decorating, soft goods, etc. And then I do event styling, tablescapes, menu planning, etc. Heading into my busy season, which is the seasonal decorating. So my clientele, my service clientele, my one-on-one demographic is high-end professional women that are, conquering the world out on their own, and then they come home and that's not their thing. They know they want it to look and feel a certain way, but they're not really sure how to get it there. And so I come in and I take some things off their list and create beautiful spaces. And I was really happy to be on this connections panel because a lot of what I do creates environments and situations for people to connect. So whether it's someone redoing their office and they get to connect with their clients in an environment that makes them feel comfortable or is marketed and branded to their business, or if it's at a dinner table. They do a lot of client dinners, but also with their friends and family around the table. And then, creating spaces for them to connect with nature or, just their friends around the neighborhood, etc. So I talk a lot about connecting with various aspects, whether it's yourself, whether it's nature, whether it's friends and family, or your clients. So it was really great to be a part of this. In terms of connection, I started thinking about how is the best way for me to express the connections. I kind of broke it down into 3 different categories. So in terms of connecting with your clients, connecting with other business contacts, and then connections with your personal connections with people and your clients. So taking the clients right away, what I found with my clients is you need to find out what their preferred method of communication and connection is. Some of my clients are very in person, and they like to have coffee, they like to have lunch, or a beverage or something, so we need to get together. And then some people are texters, some people are email. So I think finding out what how your clients like to connect is very important. And then reaching out to different clients. So how do you find new clients? I've used social media fairly effectively in that way. I do pretty well on Facebook in terms of branding, but I don't find my actual clients come from Facebook. So it's more they hear about me there, or it's more of a reinforcer for me. Twitter, I've made some really great connections on, but again, not necessarily my clients, but branding, business connections, opportunities. So Twitter has been really good for me in that way. For me, finding new clients is completely word of mouth, and me personally going out and getting out of my house and networking. So, you know, don't neglect that part of your connection, is getting out of the house and meeting new people. It's very, very important. I know it's very easy these days to stay at home on your computer and you know, and sit back and think you're doing a lot of connecting. But I have found, at least in my business, and it may vary in whatever your demographic is, that getting out of the house and meeting people, having real conversations, is very, very valuable in that respect. Then back onto the marketing in general, marketing your business and connecting. As I said, I've used social media. I just completed a successful Kickstarter for my book launch, and yeah, thank you.
Tell us real quick about your book. Tell us real quick.
So my book is An Appealing Plan, A Year of Everyday Celebrations. So it kind of brings together all of the aspects that I love to do. It will be seasonally, so the chapters will be seasons, and there will be ideas for seasonal decorating, but also seasonal entertaining. So again, it's about the connecting. How can you connect with your environment, and then how can you connect with others? So there's recipes, tablescapes, and seasonal decor ideas throughout the season. So like I said, I launched my Kickstarter, and that was when I really realized the connection part, how important that is, and having the support of your clients, but also your network. And those, and it's not even necessarily about who comes on, and for me, who came on and supported financially, which I was incredibly grateful for everyone who did that. But there are people who, you know, are not in a financial situation to support it, but because they know me and they have a connection with me, spread the word. And there were people that I didn't even know came on board because of those other people spreading the word. So being authentic in your communication and building your connections and brands that way is very, very important. And I don't feel that if I didn't, I feel if I did not have a strong network and connection with my clients and my you know, social community, that the Kickstarter would not have been successful. So I feel that it's going to be just as important going forward, keeping that connection alive as I launch my book and do book tours. And I'm really looking forward to getting out there and talking and communicating with people. So those are just some of the ways that I think is really important. So in terms of like your main categories, think about who your clients are, how you can connect with them directly, what's their preferred method of connection, and then how are you going to build your brand in terms of a connection. So those people may or may not ever really become clients, but people connecting with your brand will share the word of mouth, and so I think that's real important. And then connecting on a personal level, so making sure that you still take that time to connect with your friends and family, again, whether it's over the dinner table or a phone call or a personal note, but keeping that real life personal interaction is very important. And so those are my main things. Oh, and I would say find a mastermind group that you connect with. I know some of the lovely ladies are in here, and that's right. So, but finding that real connection again, because those people will be very important to you as you go forward in your business, because you, again, it's not necessarily a matter of what they can do for you. Never look at it that way, but you will get so much out of hearing different perspectives and connecting with them. So I think that's a very important thing, and I get something out of my group every time, even if it's not business related. It's a lot of times it's just personal and getting out of my space and connecting with those people. So connections count on every facet. So that's my little spiel.
Awesome. I love it. I'm gonna focus in on Bree and Bridget because they're in a very similar, like as I am in design, and they're in school right now for design. So Bree and Bridget, do you have any specific questions for Krayl and how she's taken her passion for design and her turned it into an expertise, and then gone into a business and created, you know, various ways of making money, doing what she loves? Do you have any questions about that you want to ask her that maybe pop into your mind about as you're finishing up?
I do. How did you pick your clientele base? You said you work with women. Is it single women, or hire? How did that
It's,
come into play?
how did it come about? That's a great question. I did not necessarily pick them. It kind of, because people always say, how did you get into that, such a small, like, niche demographic? I did not pick them, but I think that the taste level and the monetary and disposable income has to be there. So that's how it's come to be, that it's usually professional women. They may or may not be single, but they usually work outside of the home and may or may not have kids. Usually they tend to have maybe older kids, so there's not kids running around the house necessarily, so they're ready to do some different things and entertain differently than with the smaller kids. But usually I have a lot of doctors, lawyers, CEOs, those type of people. And then I just started to see, I guess more to get back on your question, answer your question, I started to see that as a category of clients that were asking me a lot of questions about it, but not just asking questions, oh, how can I do this? More asking real questions about my business and other clients and what services I offered. So I did not necessarily, but this has started, 15-something years ago. So it's just kind of come to be a little bit more of that. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think the big thing about it, Krayl, is you have you have a strong style aesthetic that you like and that you go to. Even though you have variations within it, your style aesthetic is very Krayl, and your ideal client resonates with your style aesthetic and also the way you work. Your personality, you're very you're precise, you're on time, you're responsible, you follow through, you have a very specific way of working that I think really resonates with the character of your client. And so I love how you explained it as it kind of just happened. And we feel that it kind of just happens, but every choice you made along the way was intentional because it was based on what you loved. And so you don't have to go out and figure out your ideal client, but you do need to step back and analyze once you're kind of doing it who they are, because that helps you get a bird's eye view of what your business is, so that when you decide what your next step is, you have this map of, okay, if this is working really well, these are the people that are really, resonating with what I do. Where can I find more of these people? Once you know these people, then you dig deeper. Where do these people hang out? Okay, I'm going to hang out there too. Sometimes it happens naturally because you're already there, because that you like the same things, and sometimes it doesn't. But having a really good idea of who that client is from go is going to help you.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Krayl.
Yes.
Krayl, you can't see. It's
I
Tamsin.
see a hand over there.
My hand. It's Tamsin.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Listen, but do you find, like, as you're hanging out with the lawyers, the CEOs, the doctors, that there's not a lot of other designers hanging out with those people, so it puts you in a unique place to be, or are there, like, because I know I find that, like, because when I hang out with people that, you guys, my dreamies, there's not a lot of lawyers in the bunch.
Right. Yes. The difficult thing, the challenge I found with my demographic is that they don't do a lot of networking outside of their group, sort of to your point. So it is sort of challenging to get in there, because I can't go to a medical convention or, something like that. So that is a challenge of my clients. So yes, that's true. But I think, so just for instance, yesterday I just went to, I'm in Tampa, Florida now, the Tampa Bay Business Journal Businesswoman of the Year Awards. And so in that group, there's a lot of professional women, and I can have access to them and networking that way. So finding groups where they are, that, and it may be word of mouth. So I met a couple people yesterday, but it may be more frequently someone says, oh, Sue told me about your services or told me I should talk to you about that. So it's not. It is hard finding them, but it just becomes word of mouth when you start to get up. You do have to find those executive women.
Krayl, I have a question for you. It's Court.
Yes, hi Court.
So I'm super curious with your working in the past with like Waterford and Wedgwood and events. Where did because I know that personally you're a foodie.
Yes.
I know you're a foodie. How did you developing your own recipes and incorporating that into your work come about?
Well,
asking you for that, like, okay, well, you've got the plates and the table settings, and you've got me help me put together this amazing thing, but I don't know what to cook or who to, hire for that. Like, how did that happen?
It does happen a little bit, and to be honest, if they need, people have asked me to cook for them, and that's not my business. So you have to remember not to get too distracted and off course. So I usually bring in a chef or recommend a caterer to do that side of it. The food part is mainly that I am a big foodie, and so incorporating that into my world and all the things that I love. It's with the book. It's become more prevalent, I think, because bottom line, it's not a design book because it's just not. I'm not an interior designer. I didn't want it to be a full-on design book. It's really more about designing through the seasons and living through the seasons. And then within that category, entertaining is not a strong book category. Cooking is a huge market right now in terms of book sales, etc. So in order for it to be in that category, I needed to have a decent amount of recipes. So it was a really nice transition for me to be able to bring that in because I love doing that side of it. But in terms of my personal service, so I kind of split it up in two businesses. There's my personal service, and then there's the online persona that people are looking for recipes. They'll search recipes. They'll end up on my site because of that, and then find, she also does this. So again, it's the smaller service portion. I don't do food at all. I mean, I might recommend options, but I don't cook. And then the bigger as a branding, and there's also, there's money in that. Food sponsors have money, and they'll bring you on to be an ambassador and things like that. So it's sort of two different markets, to be honest, not to confuse anybody. But
I love this conversation because it just goes to show that you can follow your passion and your dream and be very creative in how you strategize to make it into a career and a business and to fund and fuel the business with revenue. You need, like we were talking about, you need to have money coming in as a tool to help you move ahead to do the things that you want to do. Allow it to be a tool for you. And be creative. We're creative people. Be creative in the ways that you package what you offer so that what are they wanting, what do they really need, what is their desire, and how are you packaging what you do to reach that audience. And with the food, she just knew where to position herself. You need to know where to position yourself in the market.
Right. I mean, so a lot of times clients will come on, and it's they may not hire me for a weekend gathering, but they'll say, I need to go and find out a recipe for this dinner, and then they keep me in their mind for a client dinner that they maybe have, they want it to be a little bit more upscale. They want to bring someone in so that it's all pulled together, or graduation party or something like that. I keep in their mind, so it's not just like, sales. I'm not like, it's, try this recipe, try this floral arrangement, that kind of thing. And then I'm on top of mind when it does come a situation where they need support.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. Who's up next? Wants to go next?
Come on, someone wants to.
I'll go.
Good.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep, you're on.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Wallis, and I was thinking my old little child on the bottom lower third would show up, but my name's Laura Wallis, and I have an online site called Web Navigator Gal, and you can find me at webnavigatorgal.com, and I basically help very busy entrepreneurs market their businesses successfully online. a lot. I know you've touched base on SEO. That's part of what I do, but overall, I just consider myself in that holistic, marketing banner where I'm truly about what are my clients' needs, and designing a plan. We design a plan together so that they create the business that they're the business model they're trying to achieve, and of course the life, as we're talking about as well. And my background is I studied applied art and design in college, and grew up drawing my whole life. I lived in the country, and there weren't a lot of kids actually, other than family. So spent a lot of time on my own, drawing and painting and things like that, and being in nature. And then went to school, and I think I studied applied art and design. But I love film, so I love just one of my greater loves. So I ended up at the studios. I live in Los Angeles here, and I ended up working for Disney for over 10 years.
No.
I worked. Yeah, and I worked at and then I worked at Fox International, and I worked at Sony for a long time, and worked on Sony Classics and Miramax. And I also had a stint at Mattel. I worked in the toy industry for a while. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I always wanted to have my own business in time. And of course, the tipping point, oftentimes is when you have children. I was traveling a lot for work, basically 24/7 for work, doing a lot at the time. And when I had my first child, it was one of these things where if your family, those of us that do, was paying someone else to live my life. That's what's going to be happening, because I was working till 10 at night, I think the night before I had my first daughter. So my husband works in entertainment as well, and so I decided to take a break for the first time in years, and I was kind of a late mom. And so that's kind of my story. And then I thought, I'm going to want to do something online, and I started a business when my first child was born, like I said, going back like 13 years ago. And it's just, I didn't have the focus at the time. I was really, enjoying time with my daughter, and it was, it completely failed, which I just, I see why it did. I wasn't focused on it. And I kind of tabled that for a while, and we had another child. And then I also, my mom's a teacher, and I became very involved in the community here, and I helped start a charter school, public charter school there. So that was kind of going on, but in the meantime, I wanted to have my own business as well and have that flexibility versus going back and working this 24/7 thing again. So I started fresh, again, and I've always loved helping entrepreneurs, and especially creative entrepreneurs. So that's kind of what I've done. And my model was an agency model, talking about, it was an agency model where I was, working with entrepreneurs, creating business, not business plans, but marketing plans for them. Where do their ideal clients hang out? But I'm not a certified coach, but my clients started calling me a coach, and so that kind of morphed into kind of a marketing coach kind of thing. So that's kind of where I am now, and what I like to talk about in terms of this and connection is just, just this idea of having a lifetime ideal client, which is basically not necessarily that you're going to have the same client for the rest of your life, but it's really just it's about connecting with that person so that you have a relationship and they trust you, the know, like, and trust factor, and they become either brand ambassador, or they refer people to you, or they may come back later on, or maybe they have referral partners, or things like that. And so really it really comes down to building about those relationships, right? And even of course, I think a lot of people make a mistake if they're just focusing on a business online that we were talking about before, just hiding behind your computer. And I'm actually a very private person, and that's really difficult. Was very difficult for me. Just kind of getting comfortable, being kind of out in the spotlight. But it's we're all people, and that's kind of what it's about. And that's why I've met most everybody here in this group, is just really taking that step out. And what's so fabulous is that, and so great, is that now we have Google Hangouts, or obviously I walk around, I connect with people constantly on Skype with my clients, and also people I work with the Skype app. I have Google Hangouts on my app, and it's just whatever way join me, you can take that that first touchstone of communicating with someone and how to build on that, and really develop relationships. So so that's what I do.
Love it. I love it. What would be your biggest tip for creating those lifetime clients? Like your biggest, I missed a little bit of what you were talking about, but what would be like the one thing you'd say that would help foster that relationship for the long term?
I think that, it's, if you probably all are familiar with Brene Brown, I think being, having a level of being vulnerable, I think that was something that for me I struggled with because, even though I was kind of part of an artist community for many years, going into corporate was very different. It was you didn't show your vulnerability. You didn't do that. And then having your own business, you're professional, it's okay to be human. It's okay to show your vulnerability. And in fact, it can be your greatest strength. Being able to connect, as a personal, creative or personal brand, that is in fact your greatest, asset. And I'm sure we've touched base on that. That's what's going to separate you apart from, the Disneys and the Mattels of the world. That they can't compete with that. So I would say just really getting comfortable, with, being, putting yourself out there, and you're still professional, but it's like Martha Graham, the famous Martha Graham quote. There's nobody else in the world like you that has your unique gifts. So it's really, embracing that, and just really getting comfortable with that.
Love that. Awesome. Do you ladies have any questions for Laura? You good?
I have a question. I'm just curious if you, because I've struggled with this a lot too, but if you feel like it was hard to let yourself be in the spotlight and was doing like reading Brené's work or like something else, like how did you overcome that? Was it just a long process? I mean, do you have to get used to it, or?
I think that we all, whether you're creative or if you're an artist or whatever you're doing, that you have to keep pushing your comfort zone a little bit, or you're just not going to grow. And I think that it's that's really important. But at the same time, you have to be true to yourself and your own integrity. So, for example, I love Google Hangouts and sharing these kinds of spaces. Do I have a channel on YouTube right now? No. Do I work with my clients and for them if that's their comfort zone? And I think it's a terrific vehicle, and I help them optimize that and work that as a tactic into the overall marketing plan. But may I do it someday? Maybe. But also you have to be focused on what you're comfortable with and where your strengths are. I don't think those are necessarily my strengths. I was always the behind-the-scene person. I was even in school. I love the theater, but I was always the person that designed the costumes and painted all the scenery, and I was comfortable having them put the show on. I want my clients to shine. I want them to be the star. And so I think that's good. We all can't be that way, and I think just finding where your strengths are and harnessing those and leveraging them, and then also still kind of keep pushing a little bit, pushing that comfort zone so you can grow.
I love that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Chantelle or Bernie wants to go.
I saw her pointing at me. I was on mute too. Okay, I'll go. Hello, ladies.
Hi,
Chantelle. So thank you, Shana, for having me here. This is very exciting. I love this whole dynamic of you guys being live, but being able to join you virtually as well. So this is very fun. And I am a professional speaker. I have been for about 5 years now doing that as my sole business. And so sometimes I think, well, I'm not creative like you guys, but it's a different creative, I guess. I'm creating with words and messages. And so I also help women to be able to craft their story, to really own their story and write their own speeches and really find that message that they're meant to be sharing with the world. And it's interesting, I actually have a one-on-one client right now who is a beautiful artist, and we've really come to be able to connect those two worlds of speaking and her art, and so being able to really see the beauty in in the individual and in our surroundings and in our life. And so she's developed this message that really connects with the art that she's doing and putting out into the world. And so she's using speaking, and speaking in small, intimate settings with some of her customers, having art showings. So she's using speaking as a vehicle to still spread the message about her art. And I think so often people start to think about speaking and they get like, oh no, I can't speak up on stage or do a big keynote, and yet speaking in our business is powerful, because what we're doing right now, there's chances to be interviewed by people, there's chances to put on your own summits or your own interviews. It's a way to increase your visibility and your credibility, and so speaking connected to your business is so important. And then I'm also a courage igniter. So I have started what's called the Courage Revolution. So it's all about helping women to get their brave on and to really take courageous action in their life and business. And that's actually where I met Shana. So I did a project. Let me just kind of go back really quick. I'll tell you my story really quick. It was about 5 years ago. I was sitting in the back of a church, and I was at the funeral of one of my dear friends, and she had passed away, and she was very young, had 4 boys and a young family, and she had lost her husband the year before, and she had developed breast cancer, and she had passed away. And so I was sitting at the funeral, and I remember hearing her oldest son talk, and he was just out of high school. And he was talking about his mom's final hours and how she was not ready to go, how she was a fighter, and how she had so much left to do. And I remember it just hit me, and as tears were streaming down my face, I realized that I was alive and I was breathing, but I wasn't truly living. I wasn't living as fully as I needed to be living in all areas of my life, in my relationships, in my business, in my life in general, in my personal life. And so I made a fear list. And on that fear list, I wrote everything down that I was scared to do, or that I'd always wanted to do but was too scared to do it. So I would challenge you guys to make your own fear lists and start crossing it off. And so I started crossing these things off, and on the very top of my list was skydiving. And I really didn't know if I would actually do that, because I'm really scared of heights, and yet I've seen them coming down, and it looks so peaceful and amazing and all that good stuff. And so I was like, I don't know if that's ever actually going to happen, but it was on my list. And then one of my friends actually, she said, hey, do you want to go skydiving with me? And this was a year ago. And I said, yeah, let's do that. Let's make that happen. And yet, here's another lesson for you. I needed to make my why bigger than my fear. So in order for me to jump out of that airplane and not crawl back in and hang on for dear life when they said it was time to jump, I needed a bigger why. And so I decided to do the Courage to Fly project, where I got 60 amazing change-making women to write a book together. So we co-authored this book. We created a website, got this fundraising platform together, and the reason we were doing it is because I was going to fall 10,000 feet, which is how high it was, to raise $10,000 to build a school in Nicaragua. And so this was my big why. And I think as I did that, this is where the Courage Revolution, this is where my business, this is where all these connections and relationships came from. This is why I'm here today, is because I was able to follow through on that inspiration, and I took action even though everybody said, you only have 6 weeks till you jump, and you're going to write a book and raise $10,000 and publish this and do all this crazy stuff. And I was like, yeah, we're going to make this happen. And so I think a lot of times in business, we wait until everything's perfect, or we listen to other people who think that we can't do something, and we stop on those inspirations. And I want to challenge you, when you feel inspired, when you feel motivated, when you're excited and something's lighting you up, that you need to take action and need to listen to that and make it happen. So that's where my journey led to then starting this Courage Revolution and being able to be here with all of you. So, so that's my story, and that's one of the things that I really help and want people to see, is that you all have a brand story. You all have a story within you that needs to be shared. And it needs to be shared in a powerful way that connects with people, connects with them on a real emotional level so that they understand why you're doing what you're doing. I'm here to help you get your brave on. And I was jumping out of airplanes so that I could share that message with you, right? So that's my story, but it comes from a place of breakdown and breakthrough. And that's really important too, is to remember that you need to find kind of that breakdown, breakthrough moment so you can share your story with the world. I don't know. That's, yeah. And I would love to know, like, I can dive into fears, I can dive into stories, I can dive into speaking. Is there something specific you want me to kind of talk more on?
I just wanted to comment to your amazing ability to create community and to get people on board with your ideas. You were a huge inspiration for me. You know, there are various people that have inspired me with creating the Underground Art Initiative, but the part of the Underground Art Initiative about connecting and getting people on board with my idea, you were one of my icons that I thought, look at what Chantelle did with bringing together this group of women to create this book, to write these stories, to share their story with the world on this platform. I want to create a platform to share stories with the world in my own way, right? Like we were talking about, finding inspiration in the people around you and bringing those people that inspire you into your community and vice versa. So I participated in Courage to Fly as one of the writers, and Chantelle has been participating in my events as a speaker, and so we built this community from, you know, larger communities and then bringing it into the people that really resonate with us and continuing to collaborate, and it's been a beautiful experience. So for all of you guys who are here, continuing the community, staying in touch with people here. Anytime, I think was it April who said to write down when you meet somebody who has touched you or has you know, resonated with you in some way, and keep those connections alive. It's so very important. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And collaboration is huge, right? When you, that was something that I learned in really building a successful business, is when I did this Courage to Fly project. Before that, I was a solo entrepreneur, so I was doing everything by myself. You know, you're the salesperson, you're the marketer, you're the copywriter, you're the website girl, you're everything, right? You're delivering the services and the products and whatever it is you're doing. And it can become so overwhelming, and there's so much to do in business. And so this Courage to Fly project also opened my eyes up, because I had a dream team of 5 ladies that came together to help me create the website, write the copy, edit the book, format the book, help me with all these things. And I was able to do what I did best and kind of just be that person that was with the bigger vision and connecting and putting that message out there. And I didn't have to worry about all those finer details that would have taken me forever to do on my own. And so that really opened my eyes to how amazing it is to have a team of people to help you, whether it's social media or website, or even the thing that I hate the most is setting up autoresponders and connecting PayPal to MailChimp. I know it's probably simple, but I just hate it. And so I always you know, hire that out, get rid of it. And I think that's really important for women in business to be like, where is my zone of genius? What am I really good at? And where can I delegate? Where can I relieve some of that time so that I can really focus on growing my business?
Absolutely.
I have a question. Yeah. It's not so much about community, except for that it is, because I feel like in so many ways, like fighting fear, like if you are a shy person or if you're not sure how to network or something, is like a way of building community, and you have to get over that. When you made your fear list, and there were these things that you, like you said, you didn't think you would ever actually skydive, because I am really afraid of heights. And I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life, but I have said I will never jump out of an airplane. So I'm wondering how do you gauge when it's time to face that fear? Like, you know, like how did you know? Because probably, like, you know, people have asked me to jump out of planes before too, and I'm like, yeah, I'll see you when you get back. Like, no, I'm not going. But how did you gauge, how did you know when your friend said, hey, do you want to do this? And it was like on the top of your list. How did you know it was the right time?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think, you know, things are showing up. Like I even had on there when I wrote, like it's writing things down, and it's really got to be something that resonates with you. Like when I was doing this big project and I was connecting and asking people what they were going to do to get their brave on, there would be like, for example, my mom, bless her heart, she's just the amazing mom and that's always been her thing, is being a great mom, and she's always like, you're crazy with all these big dreams and big ideas, and she supports me and loves it. But her fearful thing, I remember she'd be like, oh, and then she'd share something like, for example, she'll laugh if I share this, but she emailed me when I was preparing to jump out of the airplane, and people were sharing all their fear things, and she said, I did something really scary today that I've never done before, and I was like, yeah, Mom, what was it? And she's like, I went and got my eyebrows waxed. I think, you know, for everybody it's going to be different, and it has to be something that, honestly, it's something that you really want to do, but fear's stopping you. And I don't think you have to jump out of a plane if it's not calling you, if it's not something that's really been kind of working up in you. Like with my fear list, I'm still adding things to it, and also one of the things too that happened was I wrote down dance in a Latin dance competition, because I love dancing stars and all that. And again, I was like, okay, this is probably never going to happen, but I'm going to write it down, because you never know. I might be that 80-year-old woman that's strutting her stuff out there, but I'm going to make it happen sometime. And it's amazing how when you write something down, things kind of fall into place, and they're not always the way that you think that they're going to play out. So I was meeting with another speaker who was dancing in the local competition called Swinging with the Stars. And so it was like a local organization raising money for charity, but they did an amazing job, and it was really fun and really cool. And I was like, oh, that's cool. She actually ended up tearing her ACL or something. It was only 6 weeks before the competition, and she came to me and she said, Chantelle, will you dance in my place? And so I ended up getting this hot little red sequin dress and these really cute little high heel shoes, and I don't wear high heels, but I had to dance in them, and learning the cha-cha in 6 weeks. And I would have loved to have done like flips and spins and been really like Dancing with the Stars, but it was an amazing experience. And again, it's like, hey, that was on my fear list. So I think being open, really writing down what you really most want to do, what you feel called to do, what you really, it has to be something that you feel passionate about. And then the opportunities will come, and then being open to being like, okay, this is an opportunity that I need to take advantage of.
Yeah, gotcha, absolutely.
Yeah. And for fear, too, I don't know if you want me to touch on that. For fear, I have a little 3-step process. Do you want me to share that?
Yes.
So whenever you're afraid to like hit post on your, you know, to send out your blog or to share your story or to approach a gallery to show your artwork or whatever it is, whenever you're getting those scared feelings, well, there's a few things. The first one I shared in my story, which is make your why bigger than your fear. So I would challenge each of you to really get a very clear why. So with everything in my life, business, personal, everything, I look at what is my why? What is the why? And if it's not a big enough why, I'm actually doing this right now where I want to host live events, I want to do all these big, huge things, and I'm looking at my whys. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't have time to do every single aspect of these dreams and these ideas, and I need to find the ones that have the biggest whys for me, that resonate with me, because then I'm going to push through those fears and I'm going to get that out into the world. So for you guys, it's about, first of all, challenge your fears. So I want you to get your lawyer hat on. So if it's fear of failure or fear of rejection or fear of not being good enough, so you got to get your lawyer hat on and you got to build your case. So you got to build a case that is against this fear. So proving why it is not true. And this is just like when you were a kid and you thought that there was a boogeyman under your bed or in the closet, right? You had to build a case to tell yourself that's not going to happen. That's not true. There really isn't a boogeyman under my bed. So that's, you know, same process, right? It's no different. And And then you need to, so for me, one of my biggest things was fear of failure. So in order to disprove the fact that all my life I had only done the things that I knew I would be successful at. I had only done the things that I knew I'd be really good at. So I wouldn't try out for a team sport, even though I kind of wanted to, because I didn't think I'd be good enough. I wouldn't put myself into a situation where I didn't know if I'd be successful or not, because I feared being a failure. And so that kind of came with me all my life. And here's where my fear list came in. I decided at age 32 to strap on a pair of skis. And this is where you need to practice your fears. And so the first one is challenge it, so build a case against it. So I would challenge my fear of failure by looking for examples of people who failed and did it well, and people who needed to fail to succeed, right? And there's tons of examples. And then the second thing that you need to do is change it. Change your relationship to that fear. So instead of being afraid of failing, I started to embrace failure. I started to think that it was okay, and it's actually a positive thing in my life. And the more I fail, the more I will succeed. So it's changing your mindset and your relationship to that fear. And then the third thing, which I was getting to, is create opportunities to practice. So if you create opportunities to practice, with failure, I didn't want to go maybe do some huge thing and fail really big. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to strap on a pair of skis, and I'm going to go to the ski hill with my kids, who are already amazing, and they're zooming way past me. And I'm going to look like a failure, because I'm going to be doing like, oh, you guys can't really see me, but when I ski, I have my arms out like an airplane, and I do the pizza legs, you know, the pizza legs. So I'm like, and I stick my butt out, and I'm like super slow, and everybody has to go around me, and then my kids have to wait for me every time. So I'm horrible at skiing, but I'm out there making a fool of myself, failing at something miserably, and having a blast. And so that's where I just started doing things little by little to practice failing, so that when it came time to like put myself out there on a big stage, or put myself out there and approach a big name or something like that, I was ready. So those are your 3 steps for facing fears, is to challenge it, change it, and create opportunities to practice.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, Chantelle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right.
Bernie.
Here we are, Bernie.
Hi.
Hi, I'm going to click the screen here so that we can see you. I just lost my mouse, though. My mouse is on the television screen. Let's see if I can find it here. You can start talking, Bernie, and I will get you on the screen. They can see you on the little screen, but not the big one. So.
Okay, cool. And Shana, all of the attendees that you put on the list are there, right?
Everyone except for, let's see, Francie is not here.
Okay.
Yes, Francie.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I did a little homework ahead of time, so I'm going to talk less about me in this conversation and just really highlight parts of my story that I think will resonate with you guys based on the information you guys provided Shana, the preliminary information you guys sent Shana. So with that, I'm just going to kind of go one by one, and then I'll talk about these stories. But I mean, how do you follow Chantelle, right? I mean, Chantelle's got this amazing story about, yeah, jumping 10,000 feet, and I don't quite have that. But I will say that the work that I do today as a coach and as a strategy consultant and as a speaker as well, it has a lot to do with overcoming fear. And I'm going to talk a lot today about fear, not just overcoming it. I don't think it's something you really can eliminate, but it's more about embracing those perceived deficiencies you have and getting comfortable with knowing that it's okay to have these perfect imperfections, because I think these are the things that will have you stand out and make you unique among the noisy world that we live in. So anyway, with that, where is Bree and Bridget, if you guys could raise your hand? And Laura, do you mind muting real quick? I'm only seeing your video right now, and I don't know if it's because of your microphone. Thank you. Okay, so Shana, if you guys could talk or something so your video comes up.
Hey.
Hello.
Okay, great. Okay, that was really weird. Okay, so Bree and Bridget. That's Desiree. What are you doing? Okay, So Bree and Bridget. Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry about that. There must be a delay in the video. Okay, so Bree, I understand you want to jumpstart your career because you're a student. And Bridget, you talked about an artistic journey. So it sounds like your journey's still kind of unraveling. Is that correct? Okay, great. So as I thought about both of you, it made me think about what happened to me in 2013. And I think the story will really resonate with all of you, but I think especially you too, because you're still building your stories and you're still trying to find your voice in the world. And so I'm going to kind of back up a little bit because I think this will help start the story. So in 2011, I wanted to write my first book, but I had no experience with book publishing or anything. I didn't even really have a concept yet. At that point, I was just telling everybody, I want to write a book. So I told my whole network, which wasn't a lot of people at the time, went on Twitter and Facebook, and I said, hey guys, I'm going to write a book. And everybody's like, yay, awesome, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a publisher, nothing, no experience, but I'm going to go on hiatus. I'm going to go live in my parents' basement for 6 months. I'm going to take off of my coaching business, and I'm going to do this thing. And everybody's like, 6 months? Are you giving yourself enough time, Bernie? And I'm like, heck yeah. And I lied because I'm like, I have no idea. But anyway, while I was in the basement of my parents' home for 6 months trying to write this book, I got nothing done, you guys. I'm like, I had no creative inspiration at all. I was sitting there writing a bunch of crap. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. So as you probably have guessed, 6 months later, I didn't write the book. And I did the walk of shame on Twitter and Facebook, and I told my audience, sorry guys, there's no book. And I made a lot of excuses, but at the end of the day, the real point was, and I didn't realize this at the time when I had to tell them I failed, but the real point was I didn't have a book to write because I didn't have real stories to tell, to be quite honest with you. So that was back in 2011, I'd say January to about June-ish. And then that year went by, and I decided, you know what, enough of this whole telling the world I'm going to write a book, I'll just start writing. And we'll see what evolves. We'll see when this book is ready to be written. But in the meantime, I'm just going to keep writing every single day. So this is where the connection piece comes in. So 2012-ish came by, and I found out about all these different amazing podcasts that were coming out into the world. And I'd been listening to people being interviewed about like books they've authored and how they hit New York Times bestselling lists, and all these amazing people. Many of you in the room and on the video, you guys are familiar with Chris Brogan, and he's one person who I really look up to and model after, because he is an amazing writer. He's an amazing expert in terms of social media marketing and whatnot. Just really cool guy. And that was actually around late 2011, early 2012 that I really started diving into his stuff. But again, at this point, I'm just still kind of writing the book on the side. Nobody really knows who I am too much, and I start to see these people who are really doing well out there. So I decided, well, I'm just going to go see what they're doing and kind of model after that. And so I really dove in to those communities. It was Chris Brogan, he had a web show at the time that turned into a podcast. And in that interview, he had this amazing couple who talked about how they had left their Manhattan home. They had a 6-figure salary and all these amazing things, being handed to them, and they decided last minute that they were not going to keep their jobs anymore. They were going to fly away to Africa after selling everything with only $2,000 in their bank, and they're going to go change the world. So I'm hearing these stories of these people, 2012, and I'm like, well, no, duh, I don't have a book to write. I'm not doing crazy awesome stuff like that. But instead of being jealous about it, I decided to then follow that community. And it became the Misfit community is what it's called. And AJ and Melissa Leon are the people I'm talking about. And through that connection I made from Chris Brogan's community, I fell into AJ and Melissa's community and became a real contributor in their discussion forums, in their newsletter, and everywhere they were online. So now we're going into 2013. It's been about 1.5 years since I decided, you know what, I'm going to create new stories, I'm going to have things to talk about, I'm going to get some experience, I'm going to model after all these amazing people, and in the process, I'm making connections. These are really cool people. And during early of 2013, I decided I'm just going to put myself out there. Instead of kind of standing on the sidelines and, tweeting once in a while or replying to these people, I'm going to keep showing up in the front row, and I'm going to keep making an impact, and I'm going to keep making a difference, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get on their radar of these people and the people in the community. And what ended up happening was so magical because, these people have massive communities. I'm talking like over, 100,000 Twitter followers, and many of them have like, I think it's like 15,000 newsletter subscribers, and I'm talking really massive audiences where I'm just one of those tens and hundreds of thousands of people. And what ended up happening was I started to get chosen by these people. Chris Brogan had me on his podcast talking about, I don't remember what it was about anymore. I think it was about getting through fear. And he told his audience in his podcast, he said, the reason Bernie got chosen to be interviewed is because she kept showing up in the front row every single week. And she's a raving fan. And when she shows up, she's very helpful, and she's so supportive of everybody. You guys can do that too. Like, if it's possible for her, it's possible for you guys. And, after Chris Brogan said that to me, it really moved me because I realized at that moment what I was doing right and what I was doing well for a very long time. But at that moment was when I really realized that that was a strength I had, that I really needed to hone the strength more. And it was showing up in the front row and being recognized by these people, these key influencers and these prolific thought leaders. And the more and more they gave me validation for what I was doing right, the more and more I became addicted to continue to do it. So as I was saying, 2013 continues to go, and there's another opportunity from AJ and Melissa in the Misfit community. They needed to build a windmill. And Chantelle was talking about being afraid of heights. Please don't judge me, you guys, but I am afraid of windmills. Like wind turbines. Shana, you've seen them. There's a bunch of them in Madison, and every time I drove past these wind turbine farms, I was like, oh my God! I don't ask me why. It's an irrational fear. But anyway, this project came about. It was called the Good Misfit Project, and they were going to raise money to build a windmill in Africa. And I was like, you know what? Get over the fear, gain some exposure in my community, and get to be a part of this awesome project by these people who I really, really look up to. And I was chosen. I was one of the 30 people who raised over $20,000 in the single month of June of 2013, and we built that windmill. And it was the coolest experience ever because I was having fun, and it was easy, and I got people really engaged in what I was doing because they fell in love with the idea of, oh, what's Bernie doing this month, and oh, who is she helping this month, and what's that fundraiser for, and what, you're afraid of windmill, so it was really, really fun for me from a side project thing. And then it was also going back to that whole I needed stories to tell, so I kept creating another story. So a couple months ago later, through the Misfit community, I met Tyson Adams, who then was building I always get this wrong, the world's first philanthropic coffee roaster at the source in my parents' home country of Laos. So what that meant was the farming happened actually there in Laos, and then they take the beans and they actually make coffee there in the coffee shop, and the coffee shop is actually an actual restaurant that people can come to and purchase the coffee. And so it continues to put money back into this social enterprise. And though I never went there, I was involved in strategizing with Tyson, the founder, and we helped get the Indiegogo campaign to succeed. We raised over $15,000 in a single month, and we built the coffee house. And so now, here's another amazing movement that I was a part of, another new amazing friend, another same great community, but another misfit that I was backing up. And now my credibility and my reputation is even stronger because it continues to be this group of people with like minds and like hearts, people who want to go and change the world. And you might not have enough money in your pocket to do it, but if you have enough talent and whatever it is that you're good at, you can still contribute, you can still make a difference. And so after that project was done, I was addicted again. And one more time, there was another amazing project. A friend who I met through, again, networking, she became a connection. Her name is Amy Clover. And Amy Clover, on her 30th birthday, decided to take off for a month, for 30 days, from her personal training business. And she decided to travel North America to give 30 donation-based fitness boot camps to raise money for a charity that benefits depression and suicide prevention. And my family suffers from depression and never been diagnosed, but maybe some kind of bipolar disorder or other mental health issues. And it was really close to my heart, that this cause, because depression is not something you really talk about publicly to people. And as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure many, if not all of you guys can relate there in the room and on the screen, as an entrepreneur, it's hard, to get through the emotional and mental struggle of feeling good enough to get through today and realize that your work is needed and it is wanted and you should keep showing up. And again, that campaign was also on Indiegogo. We raised over $18,000 through that, and I also helped co-host a live event in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I used to live, to raise additional funds for that. And we brought out about 30 different people to continue with that movement. And so now I've got like these 3 massive movements that I attached myself to in all of 2013. And it was the most amazing experience. There was nothing like that I've ever experienced before, because none of this was for monetary gain. It was mostly for, I want to be connected to something that's greater than me, and I want to find my voice and my place in the world, because I don't have a movement yet, right? And by doing so, I'll be able to create these stories, and then by being able to create these stories and then being connected to all these amazing people, then maybe I can stand out in the world as whatever it is that I'm going to become. So that takes us to not too long ago, January 4th of 2014, this year. In a single afternoon, I wrote the entire manuscript of my book in under 14 hours. I think I said that already. And it was because of all of the stories that I created in 2013. It was all the experiences that I had with these movements, the lessons that I learned from all these amazing people, Chris Brogan, Tyson Adams, Amy Clover, AJ and Melissa Leon. And it was just such an amazing feeling to know that I could make a difference in the world, because you always think you can't, because philanthropists have to have millions of dollars, right, to help foundations out there, or you have to have hundreds and thousands of community members following you on Twitter in order for you to have a significant tribe. But little old measly me from Wisconsin at the time, it wasn't like that. I connected to other movements and to other amazing influencers because I believed in the cause and I believed in what I was doing. And in the process, they all reciprocated and they all supported me. And so that book, then I continued to edit it for the past 6 months, and I finally published it out on Kindle on July 25th, I believe, or 26th, 2014, obviously. And the book has now finally been written, like 3 years later, because I finally had stories to tell. And the reason connection is so important in this story, you guys, is because I honestly don't believe that I could have done any of that interesting stuff alone. I don't think my stories would have been as compelling had I not been involved in helping other people in the process. And when I look back at it, I realized that the things that I was attaching myself to was things that initially came from a place of, oh, that could be seen as a perceived deficiency, or that could be a stigma, right? Like poverty or depression or, suicide, whatever it was. But it was because I came out and said, these are things that I've dealt with, these are things that we all are going to deal with, and I'm going to back it up. I think it mattered even more to people about the work that I do because we were able to connect to a topic much bigger than all of us. And, to kind of wrap that up, the most important thing that I really want to hone in on from the story here is that I believe that sometimes we often try too hard to force something to happen, right? If we use a movement for an example. And if in 2011, if I would have forced that book and I would have wrote crap, I know I would have regretted it. But I don't think there would be such a thing as regret, because even if I did write that book, it probably would have failed. But at least I would say, you know what, I had the experience of failing at writing my first book. But I'm so glad that I waited, because in 2014, I finally realized that this book chose me because I wasn't ready to tell my story yet. And my God, honest, truthful story today, you guys, is that my ex-husband has been alienating me from my son for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And in the process of all of these things happening in 2013 was the time I was dealing with my own depression from not being able to talk to my son for 2 years. And when people look at the story and they realize that, they go, wait, hold on, how is that possible? You're doing all this amazing work. You know, wow, like why aren't you revengeful, or why aren't you resentful? And the thing was, I chose writing as my healing modality that's why I wish Francie was here, but I chose writing as my healing modality to get through that strife and through that challenge. And in the process, all of my communities that I became involved in embraced me and fell in love with the story and wanted me in it. And so I just want to make sure I remember what I was going to say. Shana, make sure that Francie, gets a little piece of that, because that was really important, because she was talking about healing through writing. Juliana and Liz. Yeah. Raise hands. Awesome. Okay. The story obviously is for you too, because as you can tell, Juliana was talking about building a body of work and also gaining notoriety. You didn't really say it like that, but that's the way I read the description of what you were looking for. And for me, as you can tell, gaining notoriety for the sake of creating fame or being popular, it never works, at least not in the long term. It was about living out experiences that are worth writing about and that are worth telling. And in the process, you gain the credibility, you gain the notoriety, because you've attached yourself to a cause, because you've become part of a movement, and in the process, you've kind of created your own movement as well. And for Liz, refining your business, oh my gosh, girl, I quit my job in 2007 after 12 years of corporate sales to become a life coach, which I hate that term now, but that's a whole other story. And and I became a strategy consultant, because then people started asking, well, how did you start your coaching business? And then I decided I didn't like the word consultant, I didn't like the word life coach, so I ended up calling myself the Shin-Kicking Life Spark, because I'm too short to kick you in the ass, but I've got a really tough approach. Thank you. But I've got a really tough approach to coaching and strategizing with you. But and I feel that it's limited if you just use the words like coach and strategist and consultant. And no disrespect to anybody who uses those words, but it just did not encapsulate who I am and what I do. And so today, that is what I do. Today, I am the Shin-Kicking Life Spark. I'm the only one who does that, and I do it in my new revolution, which I call the Brave Bear Revolution, which, again, the connection piece goes back to this, and I'll wrap it up. I was born with the name Bernadette, named after the church, St. Bernard's, and I was Catholic, obviously. And Bernadette in French means brave as a bear. And so when I finally found out the origin of my name, and by the way, my last name is Shang. I'm not Chinese, but my last name is Chinese. Long story. Shang means bear. So I've got this name that's like brave as a bear. And all my life, I never felt brave. I seriously never did. But as you can tell from the story I just told you guys, there was a lot of resiliency, there's a lot of bravery, there's a lot of courage built into that. And it was because I was striving to prove that my name wasn't given to me in vain. And the book that I authored, I decided to call it The Year of the Brave Bear. And the subtitle is Speak Up, Stand Out, Change Your World. And that was important to me, because in there I talked about all of my experiences and working with Chris Brogan, working with A.J. Leon, Tyson Adams, Amy Clover, and so many other people, overcoming the parental alienation by writing, by telling the truth, and by going out into the world and serving people and making a difference. So that's what connection means to me. That it's all of that built into it. Sorry for the long-winded intro, but you know, I figured telling a story like that would probably make more sense than telling you where it came from, because that's not relevant anymore. So Shana, any questions?
Thank you. Ladies, questions for Bernie or questions for anyone on the panel as we bring our day to a wrap? How are y'all feeling?
Great.
Anything come out of these discussions that was either an aha moment or struck a chord or struck a fear or brought something up for you that you were like, that's something I'm dealing with?
I know one thing that struck a chord with me, Bernie, as you were talking about, you know, philanthropic work, I can't say that word, is the great thing about owning your own business and becoming an entrepreneur is being able to take the proceeds from the money that you make and making a difference in people's lives. And for the first time in my life, you know, I've donated to charity and things like that throughout my life, but it's such a wonderful feeling to be able to give back. And I know that a lot of us that's on the panel have done that before. And I don't know, just to be able to make that choice to make a difference in the world is very heartwarming. And I don't know, I think it's wonderful.
I agree, and thanks for that feedback, Desiree, because I believe that is the reason why there are people in the world who are more confident than others. I know it sounds like that doesn't really make sense, but it will in a second. I didn't have a lot of confidence in 2011 when I was still trying to find all these stories I wanted to write in this book. So the lack of confidence held me back from wanting to write that book, right? Or even wanting to get on stage and talk about things. And when I started to throw myself into that kind of work, I was excited to talk about all the experiences I had, because it gave me the confidence to say, you know, quick example, you know, my sister and I are roommates, and my sister was saying something, she made a joke about like water. I think I dropped an ice cube on the ground and I had to throw it in the sink. And she's like, you're going to throw that ice cube away? You know, there are children in Africa who don't have water? And she laughed, of course, she was kidding. And I was like, hey, I helped build a windmill in Africa, so there, you know. But just being able to like crack jokes like that, it gave me a sense of confidence to go out and say, you know what, I am a change maker. I am somebody in the world who matters, and I do have the ability to influence other people and make an impact because see what I'm doing. So for me, I feel like joining a cause or contributing to a cause is a way that you can build that confidence, especially if you're new and you're still building your tribe. That's a great way to do it, by attaching yourself to other tribes, and then finally, like, you kind of create your own tribe in the process because people start following you and start following your work. So I hope that makes sense.
But and creating those experiences too, just to kind of segue into something that we've been talking about with Bridget and with Bree. And with they're at a point in their lives where they're not really necessarily as rooted as maybe some of us in what we're doing, and they have a lot of freedom to choose. We always have freedom to choose the next step, but in thinking about traveling overseas, we're just thinking about going to London, and we keep telling her that she doesn't go. We're gonna just like chase her down because she's, it's a desire that she has, and it's a story that hasn't been written yet, and it's something that, unless you allow yourself to follow those strong impulses, those things that you've become so affectionate towards or obsessed with, or you just have this strong feeling that this is something I really want to do, if you don't follow that, that story is never going to be written. And even if you go and you go to London or you try these things and you fail, at least you have a story, at least you have tried, at least you have no regrets as to your life and to those dreams, that you have to give it a shot. You have to at least give it a try and let go of those fears and just go for it, because the worst thing that could happen is that you didn't go, and it would have been the most amazing experience of your life.
Shana, I love that you brought that up because one quick story. My book was delayed. I was supposed to launch it on May 26, 2014, and it was delayed. And the Misfit conference was coming up, the one that was held by AJ and Melissa, who I told you guys are like big in modern day heroes of mine. And I was 50-50 on going to the conference. I said, you guys, your conference is 4 days after my book is supposed to launch. How the heck am I going to do that? And, you know, they said it was up to me at the end of the day, but, you know, I was still struggling with that. You know, am I a failure because I'm not launching my book on time? Or do I go to this conference and let's see what happens? And a really good friend of mine in that community who had gone to that conference before said, Bernie, you've got to go. If there's a conference you don't want to miss, you don't miss the Misfit conference. So I went to the conference, and one day before I actually was going to arrive in the conference, AJ and Melissa said to me, oh, by the way, we want you to get on the stage and speak. And I'm like, what? You know, like, this is crazy, you know? But I wanted to cry because these people who I barely knew a couple of years ago who I'd been following, you know, I was on their radar, and now I've become, you know, considered a pretty good contributor in their community. And then after that conference, I had another chapter to write, like the final chapter to close that book. And so actually in the book, in the final chapter, I wrote about that. I wrote about how this chapter is being written because I decided to let the delay take place, trust the process, and the book ended up being delivered in July, right? Thank you, everybody. And it ended up being perfect. It ended up being so perfect. The book couldn't have ended much better than that.
Wonderful. Yeah. I love how you bring up the delay. The delay. We're always racing towards a goal. We're always racing towards the finish line. The delay is the journey. The delay is an intentional part of, what are you doing? An intentional part of, you know, those choices that you make, allowing to analyze those choices and letting some things wait because they're going to be there. The things that are going to, you can return to. If there's an opportunity that comes up, take it. Let that enhance your life. Let that enhance your story. Don't worry about rushing to the finish line.
And I would add, just tying into this whole idea about connection is, you know, that's what connection is just being a part of a community and sharing that why. And I know I can speak for myself, means starting, you know, I've been involved in a lot of different things in my life and communities, and, you know, just Special Olympics and disabled, but just here in LA, there's so much. That starting the charter school really was a grassroots, a public school that, you know, that was very much in need, and everybody rolling their sleeves up. Those connections that were made, you know, now affect my business. You know, that wasn't the intention, but, you know, we were in it together, and those are very, very strong relationships, and not just, you know, it's great to write a check, but, you know, go, like Bernie said, go roll your sleeves up, get involved, have that human to human connection, you know, it's so powerful.
Yeah, to not be so singularly focused on your business or your internship or your career or your boss or your teacher or those other things, but to roll up your sleeves and do things that may not be bringing you monetary gain right away, may not be bringing you notoriety right away, but it's building a community. And it's going to play into your life and your business in ways that you would never imagine. Just follow your heart on these things. Follow your gut on these things, because the reason that things come across your path. That might be the library closing in half an hour, I think.
Attention, please. It is now 4:30 and the library is closing at 5 o'clock. Please.
I think the thing that is like hitting me about this is that sometimes being an entrepreneur or whatever can feel really lonely when you're doing that on your own. Also, there are seasons in our lives where we go through some really tough shit, and it's really hard, and it can be like a really dark place, and you know, it's so easy to like spiral downward into that, but to have the thought that I'm going to choose to be around these people that I admire because they're doing cool stuff in the world. Like, they're helping people. I want to be near that. And, like, for me, like, I've been through some really hard times in my life, and the darkest times, you know, that was when I found, you know, this community. Like, maybe a really lonely time in my life, and I, like, decided to, like, join a business school that I had never heard of except for like a few hours ago, and like, things like that. And for me, it's like filling that well with like positive connections. Like you're really intentionally choosing to be a part of something positive in your community, or to create community around like people who are change makers, not, like, because it could have very easily gone another way. And so much of life like is like that kind of like it's about these choices, and I think that's what really resonates with me in hearing your story about the school, and Bernie's story about like you chose to like dive into these people that you didn't really know, but you knew them online and their presence, and just like it felt good, it sounded good, it was like I want to be near that, I want to be like that. And that's like, I see someone like Shana and like how she does business, how she does sales, and I'm like, well, that's how I want to do sales. I don't want to do sales like this, like, because I used to associate sales with lying, like, and stealing from people, and like, trying to swindle someone or pull one over on them. And like now I don't have that association anymore. Like sales can be like a really pure exchange, and like community and business and like all of that is like this really, it can be like a really pure and positive exchange, and it can be healthy and uplifting. And it is like this like, centrifugal force that kind of like everybody can like kind of build each other up, and like you guys and your presence here today on as a part of this is a part of that like uplifting, and like all of us being able to be and helping each other be the people the people that we're supposed to be, not just that type of entrepreneur we're supposed to be. And the type of person you are affects your business more than anything.
That's so true.
So I'm grateful. Thank you for sharing, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, big round of applause. Thank you. Well, that is a wrap for day 3 of the Underground Organization. Can you believe it, you guys?
No.
All right, my lovely panelists. Thank you so much for everything. I don't know if you can see me here.
Thanks, Shana.
We'll talk really soon. Have a fabulous weekend.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.